This study looked at elementary school students' perceptions of using student response systems, also known as classroom response systems or clickers. Student response systems allow students to answer digitally displayed questions and receive immediate feedback. That's usually done as a complete class. So questions are presented and students respond, and then they can see how others respond and where their answer fits in terms of being correct, or also initiating discussion if students want to discuss which question is correct. Extensive research has been done in higher education on the use of student response systems or clickers, but limited research has been done in elementary school classrooms. The purpose of this study then was to examine grade 4 to 6 students' attitudes towards the use of student response systems over a 3-month period. 88 students participated in the study in grades 4 to 6. There were 45 girls and 42 boys. Over 98% of the students said they were comfortable using technology. The procedure was rather straightforward. Students used student response systems typically once a week, sometimes more, for a 3-month period. And then they completed a written survey about their attitudes towards using student response systems. In the data collection, there were 10 5-point Likert questions, 2 items on general impressions, 1 item on motivation, 1 item on participation, 3 on social interaction within the class, and 3 on learning. In addition, there were 2 open-ended questions about what students liked and did not like about using student response systems in the classroom, and that yielded 139 comments. In terms of general impressions, over 90% of the students agreed that they liked using student response systems. And here are some sample comments. I liked everything. It made everything easier. Everything was good. I don't think anything was bad about using the clickers. With respect to motivation, over 80% of the students agreed with the statement, I was excited when we used student response systems. And here are some sample comments. What is good about using clickers is that you get to have fun. It's a fun way to learn. I think we should use clickers for everything in class because they're so much fun. With respect to social interaction, almost 60% of the students agreed with the statement, I like seeing other students' answers on the screen. About half of the students agreed with the statement, we had a better discussion when we used student response systems. But less than 30% of the students agreed with the statement, I felt bad when most students got the answer right and I didn't. Here are some sample comments about social interaction. I didn't like using them because there was way too much pressure. It put pressure on me. You accidentally clicked the wrong answer, and there's a time limit. We didn't have enough time to answer questions. The only bad thing about clickers is that people were always changing their answers, and that made it take longer. People would scream and shout if they got the correct answer. You can see here that there was some tension about using clickers with respect to social interaction in the class. Students liked using the clickers, but there were some problems at this level with feeling pressure. With respect to learning, 85% of the students agreed with the statement, I liked using student response systems for tests. Almost 90% of the students agreed with the statement, I liked the quick feedback we got when we used student response systems. And over 50% of the students agreed with the statement, I learned more when student response systems were used. Sample comments about learning included, the quizzes were more fun with student response systems. I liked the tests we did, and using student response systems is better than written tests. I liked seeing the results after every question. I really liked how you could see everybody's answers, but it was anonymous. I learned more when using student response systems. I liked how we use student response systems because it is challenging. And finally, students responded to technology challenges. Some comments were, well, sometimes the student response systems didn't work and you had to point it in all directions. Always have to move when we do it because the remotes never reaches the sensors. Sometimes the student response systems didn't work. I kind of didn't like it because it was hard to get your answer in when you don't mind aiming at the blue thing. Now, because these students were at the elementary school level, they didn't have cell phones or mobile phones, so they had to use physical clickers. And so that may be a disadvantage for using this type of technology in the classroom. So, in summation, overall, elementary school students had positive attitudes towards using student response systems. Learning was first and foremost on students' minds. That's where we got a number of comments, and that's where students focused in terms of the advantages of using student response systems. Students were clearly more excited and had fun using the student response systems. That doesn't equate to cognitive engagement, though, and so that needs to be looked at later. There were relatively moderate attitudes about student response systems improving social interaction, so the discussion was better, or thought to be better, by about half the students. But there were problems about feeling pressure in terms of getting your answer in and students screaming out their answers in class. So younger students can feel the pressure of responding. And that's something that teachers should take into account. In terms of future research, we should probably look at the kinds of strategies that can be used for student response systems. For example, peer discussion, where the answers are displayed and the teacher doesn't give the correct answer right away, or that's not obvious. Students then have to discuss and debate and then vote again. So that strategy wasn't looked at specifically, but it's an example of something that could be used. And then the other thing is to look at actual learning performance. We looked at students' perceptions of learning, but using student response systems and the impact on actual learning was not looked at, and that's research that probably needs to be conducted. I'm Dr. Robin Kay, and that's how you can reach me if you want to ask any questions about this study.